Coming up.
So Tamara, growing up, my father died when I was 6. My brother was always sick. My brother died when I was about 10. And then I lost my mother my first month of college. And like that look, I was determined that, listen, that will not be my story. I will not be defined by that. That will not be my limitation.
Imagine losing your father, brother, and mother by the age of 17 years old. Well, that is the story of this week's guest on the Trailblazer, Natalia Whyte. She's a community trailblazer who is an educator, an author, and motivational speaker and coach who is positively impacting the lives of those in her community and many others. She will be sharing her tremendous story of overcoming adversity and her rules and tips for a winning recipe for success. Stay tuned. Special thanks to our sponsors, Stars Publicity, for all your PR and publicity needs. Get noticed and align with the stars. DG's Health and Wellness Center for weight loss, weight gain, and other healthy lifestyle needs. Book a consultation today. And Kaoris Beauty for all your skincare needs, including the best products to fight acne and more. Get 5% off all purchases using the discount code Tamara5OFF. More details on all these packages listed in the YouTube description. What's your word to them?
I would say to fight. Fight for your dreams, fight for your purpose.
Life that inspires you, that motive that you aspire to be.
Right? Meaningful and critical. It's not a waste time movement, in
my humble opinion, is become very comfortable with yourself.
Very important. You know, the saying in Jamaica, one hand can't clap.
You forgive yourself for allowing people to mistreat you.
Disciplines that we need to embody.
You just have to work at it and be committed. Everyone.
And it's scary to have all of that fall away from you. And you have to celebrate those wins. Work with fitness clients.
For guidance, rely on Christ for support.
And no rush. I did it. I made my move into entrepreneurship at 40.
So scared that when...
What, last comments would you want to share with
you? You have your core values, you do the right things, it'll fall in place for you.
Natalia Whyte is an educator, author, motivational speaker, and coach. She is also the co-founder of the Online Science Academy. This community trailblazer lost both her parents and a brother by the age of 17 years old and spent part of her early years growing up in the inner city community of Grand Spend, Kingston, Jamaica. Despite all that, she has defied the odds and is the author of the book, Recipe for Winning, A Guide to Success. As a life coach, she has worked with staff members of Sandals Resorts International and more. We hear more and her winning success strategies in this another riveting episode. Hi Natalia, it is a pleasure to have you joining us on the Trailblazers. No doubt we've had so many amazing guests on this program, and we believe that as a community trailblazer, you are doing amazing things and you have quite an impactful story. And I should let my viewers know that I know Natalia from high school days, so I believe that her story is one worth sharing and one worth telling. So welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure that you consider me to be a trailblazer. I consider you to be a trailblazer as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so as I mentioned in my introduction just now, you are an educator, a seasoned educator now. You are a motivational speaker and an author. And on top of that, you have overcome various difficulties. So I want to just jump into your story because I understand that at an early age, you lost, quite a number of persons in your life. Tell me about that.
So Tamara, growing up, my father died when I was 6. My brother was always sick. My brother died when I was about 10. And then I lost my mother my first month of college. And like that look, I was determined that, listen, that will not be my story. I will not be defined by that. That will not be my limitation. I will not use my losses as an excuse. Instead, I chose, because what we need to understand is life will happen, but we have a choice. We have to audit the choices that we have in our life. And my choice then, when I lost my mother, and persons were saying, oh, Natalia, I'm so sorry for you. I'm like, I don't want to feel sorry. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. And I think in life, we have to determine how we want to feel and how we want other persons to feel about us. And I decided then and there that, listen, I want to be an inspiration. Whatever I've gone through will inspire someone else. And I want to live a life that is inspiring for my students as well as my son.
Wow, but I have to go deeper into that, because I know you kind of just, you are obviously now are in a better place mentally and emotionally where you can look back and say you're using those negative experiences to propel you. But really and truly, you know, just take me back, because I understand that you spent some time growing up in the inner city community of Grantspen.
Yes. All right. So let's go back. So my father died. When my father died, I was very, very close to my father. I was totally angry. To the point where one of my teachers, Miss Lawson called me and she said, no, something is wrong. I was legit angry. I was angry with God, because I'm saying, how is it that this God could bring me so much pain? If he loves me, why is it that I'm facing so much pain? And it came full circle for me when our principal, I don't know if you remember, but this is a devotion that stood out to me at Westwood. Mrs. Spigot spoke about connecting the dots. It was a story she shared, and she said that every single experience that we go through in life is a part of God's big picture of our life. Going through it, just like connecting the dots from 1 to 2, when you're doing those craft activities, we don't necessarily understand what is happening, but the closer we get to the end, we can see the picture. And that was the day I said, wow, yes, this thing that I'm going through is a part of a bigger picture in life. And as I got older and I understood purpose, I understand that everything in our life works according to our purpose. And God outlined our purpose long before we came into this world. In Jeremiah, he said that he knew us from before we were born, before we were placed in our mother's womb. And if we understand conception, it's 1 out of 3 million sperm. And God said that I know the sperm that touch you. And so understanding that, I recognize that, listen, God had a purpose for my life.
What age did your father pass again?
So my father passed when I was 6.
Exactly. Your father passed when you were 6. And I mean, now you are in this motivated place in your life, now looking back, and you realize how everything, you know, worked together for good. But at that time when you were 6 years old and you were living in, you know, in Grantspen, how was that experience for you? What was your life like back then? If you can
all right, so I can recall going to Dunrobin Primary School at the time. I was angry to be my father died. I was legit angry. I wasn't sure what's happening with my life. But my mother always said that, listen, my mother instilled that whatever you're going through, that you will overcome it. And so she always was supporting. She ensured that academics was a big deal for us. And so I used school to excel in life. That was where I thrived, at school. Coming home, there were times when there were gun violences, like gunshots and stuff like that. And my mother's always aim when we hear the shot is like, listen, every time I hear it, come home in bed. So if she wanted me to come home early, just let me hear a gunshot, I'm going to be home very early. And that was a part of our story growing up. And when I was in grade 5, a terrible ordeal happened where behind me, the room behind me, so for example, this here would be the door, right behind me, several men were killed. And at that point in my life, I was legit devastated. I was hurt. You have heard violence. You have heard of persons in your community dying, but nothing hit close to home like that. Nothing at all hit close to home. And my mother at the time, she wasn't from there. She was from Westmoreland. She's like, listen, you cannot grow in this. At this time, it was just me and my mother. My mother was like, listen, we have to leave. We're going to leave. And I remember that happened the Tuesday morning, we were told, and my mother had me staying as a friend because her job was to protect me. This should not take me. And so my mother protected me, and she also told me not to use my circumstances as an excuse. So although going through all of that and not using as an excuse, I was still angry with God, like, why me? I was totally happy in Kingston. My life was like planned out. I was going to go to St. Andrews High School. No, I'm going to St. James. I know no one. I have no friend. What's going to happen?
So your mom migrated and moved, from...
Right. So she moved from... right.
And
so
by then your dad had passed on, as well as your brother.
Right. So it was me and her alone, and at that point, stability was no more. So my mother was a domestic helper. I mean, she had her day jobs and stuff like that. But moving now to Mobile, life was very, very difficult. And at the time, there was no preparation for us. I had to live with my uncle, Reds, I affectionately call him. But Uncle Richard was the one who really took care of me at that point in time until my mother had some amount of stability for me. And I went to primary school in Mobile for a year and a half, and that's how I had a big dream for myself going to St. Andrew High School now. Because I planned out my life. What's my life going to be now? I could have sat there and moaned, and I'm like, okay, I need to make a plan. And so my plan was to go to Westwood. Know nothing about it. Just heard my god sisters talking about how good the school was. And I'm like, this is where I need to be. And so although it was new, although it was hard finding friends and fitting in, I, at that time, didn't understand what visualization meant. I'm like, okay, I'm in a new situation. What do I want to become of my life? And I wanted to go to Westwood.
So one of the things I found interesting that you mentioned was that you planned out your life, but yet still you were like a little kid. So how is it that from such a small age you knew that, it was important to do that?
I know I wasn't happy with where I was. I knew that. I knew that I wanted better for myself. I knew that from growing up for me, it was, I am a promise. I'm a possibility. And that was my song. That was my song. That was my go-to song. Like when they ask who wants to sing a song in devotion or recommend a song, that was it. Because I knew then that, listen, I am a promise. And it doesn't matter what I'm going through right now, it's going to be bigger than that. And I remember at basic school, we sang the song, I believe the children are our future. And I believe then that I was the future. Like I took it literally. And then I realized, I don't know how, but I realized that I have to decide what my future is at that age. The community I was growing up in, just like that in Grand Spend, I didn't see persons in my rural community in St. James going to college, doing the things I aspired to do. And I'm like, I can't stay here because my vision is going to be locked. I need to go to another environment. I need to come out of where I am on a daily basis and go somewhere else so that I can have a new piece. And so at boarding school, when everybody was crying, like I was having the time of my life, I was so happy to be there because I was where I wanted to be. I know if I wanted to become something, I had to go to that school.
That's very interesting. And I mean, just looking at your determination to push through, even amidst those situations, those circumstances. And I can imagine, because again, as I mentioned, obviously knowing you from Westwood High School days, you boarded. So your mom being a domestic helper, it would have been very challenging for her.
Tamara, if you remember correctly, I used to work in the tuck shop. That was how I got money to go home, like on the weekend. At the time I was going to Westwood, we were allowed to stay home on 4 weekends. 4 weekend is when everybody would leave. And I understood my situation that, listen, my mother may not be able to afford it. And so I used to use 4 weekend as an opportunity to stay at school. Because sometimes you go home, there is no food because sometimes she doesn't work. And at that time, as I got older, my mother became ill, like serious ill. She had heart problems and stuff like that. And so to protect me, I would stay at school. I would legit stay at school on 4 weekend and I would study then because I studied mostly in silence. And so 4 weekend, and it was only a few of us, I would be there. And I was focused, like I'm just spending my time here and I'm studying here because I know that this is my situation. I wasn't saying like, it was trying to help my mother to cope with the situation, because if I go home now, how am I going to go back to school? How am I going to be able to do these things and stuff like that? So some 4th weekend she would come to visit, because I mean it would be easier for her as opposed to me going and she find the food for the entire weekend. But that was how it was.
Definitely. And I mean, just to see your mental fortitude and your strength, and at the same time, I know that you mentioned Miss Loss earlier, who is also a community trailblazer that has been featured on the program, and she no doubt, I know, was such a big inspiration for so many of us, and I know you and her were very close. So how crucial was it for you to have those persons, those adults, those mentors in your life, especially during those years?
I mean, my teachers were my rock. Like, my teachers were my rock. A lot of Miss Lawson would be the one who would take break from me. When she realized things were bad, groceries wouldn't come, she would make the sandwich, carry the drink for me. So I was on the break list. Miss Johnson, I call her mother from high school. She was always there. She would always give me the things I need to do my practical. When I had practical, she was always there to support me financially. If I had a trip to go on, she would do that. So because I understood my situation, I gravitated towards adults. I gravitated towards adults who could help me. And so even my principal today, I remember being very close to Miss Francis. And she was actually the first person who gave me an opportunity to teach, because when I was in Spanish class, when she was going out, she would ask me to teach the Spanish lessons, the same thing. So a lot of my foundation came from Westwood. Teachers like Miss Francis, Mr. Gabidan, Miss Lawson, Miss Johnson, Miss Walker. Those were the teachers who were my rock at school. Miss Ferguson, those were Miss Ferguson and Muffet Forsyth. They said, Natalia, there's something special about you. Do not give up. And I think when you are young and you have persons believing in you and seeing your potential, it does a lot. And in my life, I've always been blessed with persons who are able to see me for more than where I am at now. They're seeing a bigger version for my life. I remember when I became friends with Rondine Wings, who worked at Westwood High School. We're both young teachers, and she said, Natalia, I see you as a motivational speaker. At that time, I was just talking to my students, and she gave me my first invite to come to sixth form and do an official. She's like, I'm going to put it on the letterhead and everything, because I'm seeing you. And in our lives, we have to surround ourselves with people who see a better life for ourselves, who have a bigger vision for our life. So I think that's what has helped me. They saw something in me. When I was about to leave Westwood, Miss Loss was like, what's going to happen to you? I'm like, listen, I'm going to college. She's like, okay. At that time, I was really good at math. And she was like, okay, so you can do double option math. And I'm like, no, but I love chemistry. I'm really in love with chemistry. And we mapped it out like, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get at the time, and the government still do, they have this scholarship, double option science and double option math. And so I was good at math, but chemistry was my love. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to college to do chemistry and math. But no, I didn't realize that I couldn't do it. And I mapped out that. A lot of us in life will go through things and we may say like, this is where I'm at right now. This is all I can get. But what inspired me was my ability to dream ahead, my ability to say that, listen, nobody in my maternal family has a tertiary degree. I'm going to get this, regardless of the fact that they had no money to send me. My mother was terminally ill to the point where I was even bargaining with my mother, like, you're so sick, don't come to the VAL service, come just to the graduation. And she's like, no, I have to come to everything. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to tertiary. What's going to happen? My mother is sick. How am I going to go? And it was a scholarship for me. I was resolute then that, listen, I'm going to get the degree at $0.00. There must be somebody out there to help me. And a lot of persons, when they face setback in their life, Tamara, they are like, this is it. This is the end of the road. But that's not the end of the road. This is the problem. What is the solution? Look around and look within and be resourceful. I could have said that, listen, I don't have the resources to go to college. I don't have anybody to sign the student loan for me or anything. But I looked to my community and I said, okay, I'm going to college. How am I going to get there? right? And this lesson was able to map the path for me. When I went to Jamaica and I completed, I'm like, okay, I need the degree now, because the dream is always the degree. How am I going to do this? And then I accessed another scholarship from the government of Jamaica, and I did it. So many young persons, even my students, they have so many dreams for themselves, but they're thinking about they don't have it.
Yes.
You may not have it, but there are so many other persons who have it. And you and I are a testament that, listen, you can go to school without paying $1.
Exactly. And that's what I was about to say. Your story, even though it is unique, but at the same time, so many other young people, you know, go through with various challenges. And the fact is, the economic realities is that a lot of persons may not be able to afford it, which was my situation as well for tertiary education. But fortunately, I was able to do so with a scholarship. So you are indeed correct. So let me just zoom in on Natalia. What age were you when your mom passed?
So I was I was in the month of my 18th birthday. So I was 17. I was in college.
Wow.
I got the call. My life.
And I remember, because you were in college, but I was actually in sixth form.
Right.
I left Westwood and gone to sixth form at Manchester High, because Westwood did not have a sixth form program at the time. So I am curious. So because by then your father passed, your brother, no, your mother.
Gone through the crime and violence in Kingston. Yes, it was a lot. I realized, remember I told you about the worship that Mrs. Figard had, right? And I had realized then that, listen, every single thing I'm going through has a purpose at that age. So when my mother died, yes, I cried, but persons couldn't understand, like, how is it, like my lecturers, I even went to the guidance phones at the time. She's like, you're not behaving like your mother died. But when my mother died, I had peace. I had the peace of knowing that, listen, whatever I'm going through, God is going to take me through this. When my mother died, I was more comfortable. Yes, I cried and everything, but I had a different peace, a peace understanding that, listen, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. So something good is going to come out of that. And even at my situation at my school, I comfort students who have lost parents. So I had to go through this so that I can relate to them. You understand? If my parents had died, my life would have probably turned out to be different. But I've gotten to the stage where, listen, that has passed. I cannot live in the past. This is not what happens. What's the story? My mother always wanted me to become something. My mother always said that I'm going to do well. My mother was always praising me, always. And so I know that, listen, I cannot give up. I must keep going. I cannot give up. I must keep going. And later on in my life, I understand that, listen, I have a calling. I have a calling to I have a purpose, and my purpose was before I was even born. And my purpose is to teach. Whether I'm teaching persons how to overcome obstacles, or I'm teaching the very best subject in the world, chemistry, or whatever it is, I am to teach. And I want not just to teach with my mouth, but I've decided that, listen, my life must be a teaching experience for somebody else. Somebody must be able to see this. I must teach my son that, listen, he can do it not because I said it, but because I am doing it. I'm teaching him to dream big. If you ask him about me, he says he admires that I'm goal driven. I wasn't always like that, but when I had a child, I realized that I was going to give up on my dreams just like my mother did. And I was like, my mother wouldn't want me to do this. And my son, I would be robbing him of his opportunity to pursue his dream. And so that's when I got my life together. And I'm like, I'm going to go back to what worked for me. Success leave clues, for me, it was visualizing, finding, being resilient, being resourceful. And so for a while in my life, although I was doing really well at school, my students were on the Jamaica merit list, I was consistently getting excellent passes. I was like, there's more to me.
And that's actually the next thing that I wanted to touch on, because fast forward, you've become a teacher, you're teaching chemistry. And then not only have you done it at Westwood High, but you also for a period of time was abroad as well.
Right. I was in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Exactly. So what has been, the experience so far, especially based on the fact that, looking back, a lot of the teachers also helped you. So are shaping other young lives, you're shaping your community around you, and not only through your teaching, but also through your work as a motivational speaker, working with a lot of corporate companies now and expanding, and now also an author. Tell me about that.
All right, so as I said, I realized I had a gift. My gift was always to talk and to inspire persons, right? So I understood that. But in life, we tend to deviate. And so for me, it was always to be a successful teacher. And when I got there, I was like, what else? I was stuck, right? So I was really stuck. I became a mother. They said procrastination is a thief of time. And the thing about it is that you will have some dreams that will make you miserable. You don't just dream them today, you dream them every day, but then you start rationalizing and saying, oh, I can't do this because I'm just that. And what I had to understand as a young teacher is that you have to bloom where you're planted. And so this book birthed out of conversations I would have with my students, right? That's where it birthed from, me inspiring them, me motivating them, me saying, listen, dream big dreams, me saying, listen, whatever the dream is, water that your work ethic must master vision. So all of these topics in my book were conversation I had with my students, and I knew it resonated with them, because at the end of the time when they would have passed their exam and they're sending you their thank you messages, they always said, Miss, it's the talk, it's the thought. Because what I realize is that young people have a lot to deal with. So there are some days when I stop the lesson, like it's not chemistry, it's about sorting out you mentally so you can get the goals. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. So I had to adapt and to be adept to like sort these problems out, because a lot of them, they have situations at home, they have other stuff, and they just can't dream big, they can't see it. So I started sharing my stories with them. And then when I was at the stage where I had these nightmares, these dreams that kept coming back to me and I wasn't doing anything about them, I went back to the basics and I'm like, I'm writing this book, Recipe for Winning, to help me to find back my drive to achieve success, and also to help others to develop their own recipe for success. Because what we have to understand is all of us have had success in the past. It's unique to each of us on our journey what works for us. That although success has certain features, each of us have our unique style of achieving success, but many of us we forget. Many of us we forget what took us to get these 8-1s, what took us to get these CAPE subject, what took us to get the award at schools and stuff like that. We forget, especially when we start working. And so I had to remind myself of what it takes. What it takes is a vision, like being laser focused on what you want and not focus on here, because if you focus on here, you will never get to where you want. So you need to have a vision of your future. So the vision for my future, even at Westwood teaching, was to speak in auditoriums with thousands of people, no, hundreds of thousands of people, but I was a teacher, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna talk right here. I'm going to start talking right here.
Start where you stand.
Right. So I started there, and it grew to go into other schools like York Castle. It grew to other stuff like that. But I want to let persons know that your vision of yourself is critical, and not just get a vision for your life, is developing a plan to execute that vision. Because a lot of us, we know what we want out of life, we know our goals, we know where we see ourselves in the next 5-10 years, but what's missing is how do I get there?
Yes, we are winding down, because of time, but trust me, you are no doubt a phenomenal woman. You are indeed a trailblazer. And for me, what I like about this program is, even as I feature the corporate executives and the international influencers, we have trailblazers all around us in our community, in our schools, in our nation, and across the globe. Yes. I normally like to ask all of my guests as they wrap things up, as we wrap up, to just share some of their tips and rules for success. Now, I know you have your book, Recipe for Winning, But share with us, because I see you have your affirmation around you,
Yes.
as on your wall. I am a child of God, organized, a mogul, and all of those wonderful words. So share with us some rules and tips and a recipe for success, a winning recipe.
First of all, you have to know what it is that God says about you. Look on your skills, your gift, and develop that. Develop your vision, where your gifts are, where your strengths are. A lot of persons, they want to make it big in life, and they're like, I can't do the things that come easiest for me. But when you do the things that come easiest for you, that's where you excel. So find your gifts and use your gifts to your advantage. Once you realize your gift now, make a big dream about this gift. How do you want to use this gift? Where do you see yourself? So for example, my gift is talking, my gift is teaching, and so I dream of helping thousands of people. This year the goal is to help 100 teachers and 40 women live the life that they want to live. And so after I get this vision, I focus on the vision. So you're not seeing my vision board there, but the numbers are on my vision board. My room, my environment is matching up with the vision. And so that's where my affirmations come in, because my mind has to see the vision. So I'm speaking to the person I'm becoming, because a lot of us, we don't understand that who we are right here can only give us what we have right now. And so it means that, so when you set the vision, audit, who do you need to be to achieve this vision? What habits do you need to have? Because what routines do you need to develop? And so once you figure out your habits, your routine, you begin to build them, not all at once, one habit at a time. Right? Once you master this habit, go and take on another habit and stuff like that. Build your routines that support your success. So for me, my morning routine is gratitude. This is what I teach my clients, gift. So it's expressing gratitude for what I have. So I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to speak on your platform today. That was one of the gratitude exercises I do. I am aware of my vision, and every morning I close my eyes and I see the vision, right? And I'm also praying about it, because I am praying for the right connections, for the right people. I'm praying for the transformation that I want. So prayer is very important for me. And I'm talking, it's positive talk. My affirmations, I'm saying what I want to become, how do I want to feel in my life? And so it's decide, use your gift, make big visions, right? Make a plan. So figure out the habits, the routines that you need to build. And then once you have that, develop, okay, so the goal is to do whatever it is you want for your goal. How am I going to get there? And you map out the plan step by step. Who do you need to do? What videos you need to watch? What you need to read? What you need to implement? And then the next thing is schedule. Take intentional action every day. So when I break down my goals into very small pieces, I'm taking one thing. Today, I'm going to be doing this. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing that. So a lot of us, we procrastinate and we are inconsistent because we don't know what to do. So whatever vision you have, develop a detailed plan. Put that detailed plan into your everyday, in your planner, and do it one step at a time and celebrate every single win. Your wins are momentum that will push you to where you are going to go. That's what you're going to use to drive you.
Oh, that's amazing. And trust me, I saw the teacher in you coming out there, the teacher and the coach, because even as you're giving us the tips, you're mapping it out and spelling it out. And for me, I'm even seeing where I need to also be a bit more, consistent in certain things and a bit more disciplined as well. So thank you so much, Natalia. I mean, this, we would have to continue another time, but I continue to expect even greater things from you. Continue to see your brand expanding internationally, and I appreciate the work that you're doing in your community, serving the young people of the nation, serving as well as a coach and an author, and go out and get her book. And thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure, and I want to wish you all the best with your program, because I know it's going places. I'm seeing the Webbies and I'm seeing the Tonys, and I hope that's the vision you have for yourself, because I want to declare it that this program is going to be an award-winning program.
Oh, I received that. Thank you so much. I received it. All right, Natalia, keep blazing your trail.
Alrighty, thank you.
Hey everyone, I am Tamara McKayle, television presenter, producer, and communication specialist, and of course, producer and host of the Trailblazers series. I'm inviting you to join the family. All you have to do is just click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell right below, and join us for weekly inspirational and edifying episodes that will lift your spirits and keep you motivated so that you can blaze your trail.